The FBI raids of Rudy Giuliani's apartment and office point to major legal trouble coming his way. The search warrants are part of an investigation into his dealings in Ukraine. That's according to a person with knowledge of the matter. Federal prosecutors in New York have been trying to determine if he broke lobbying laws. Keir Dougall is with us now. He's a CBS News legal contributor and a former federal prosecutor. Thanks for joining us, Keir. So, what does the execution of search warrants at Giuliani's home and office tell you?
So what it means is that the prosecutors and the FBI in New York have shown sufficient evidence to an independent judge that a crime has occurred or has likely occurred, and that evidence of that crime is likely to be found in the places to be searched. And the standard is probable cause at the search warrant level, which is significantly below the proof that's required at a criminal trial to prove guilt. But it shows that an independent judge has reviewed the evidence they've gathered so far and has authorized them to go forward. It does not mean that Mr. Giuliani will necessarily be charged with anything. He may never be charged. If he were to be charged at any trial, he would, of course, have the presumption of innocence. It tells me also that the investigation is probably pretty far along and relatively mature, and that they've jumped through the extra hoops that you need to jump through when you search the office of an attorney.
Keir, you've started this. You heard from Rudy Giuliani's son. You've heard from other supporters of former mayor that this was thuggery, that this is the Justice Department going after Rudy Giuliani. This, I guess the family of Breonna Taylor would like a word, because this wasn't thuggery, right? This is, as you pointed out, by the book. They went to an independent judge. They got a warrant to go to his home and collect information or whatever it is that they went to get, because they are in pursuit and they have been able to prove to an independent judge that there's something that they need to further investigate.
Yeah, so this is a typical strategy, I think, by defense lawyers to complain about the process when something bad happens to their clients. But the watchword here, the key watchword is, and ought to be in all of these cases, the rule of law. Obviously the claim is that he's being treated differently because of who he is. That's a serious allegation. It should not happen if in any investigation. The fact that you are the president's former attorney or the former president's attorney, and you're formerly a big muckety-muck at the Justice Department, should not be a reason to target you, and it shouldn't be a reason to shield you. Right now, I think we can rely on the fact that a neutral judge reviewed this application and approved it.
So we know that Giuliani was part of an effort to push Ukrainian investigators to investigate Joe Biden. What charges could he potentially be looking at in connection to that, and how serious are those charges?
Right. So Mr. Giuliani's own statement, the one that is been released on his behalf, itself mentions the Foreign Agents Registration Act, which is a federal criminal law with potential felony punishment. So it's a serious crime, and it relates to undisclosed lobbying on behalf of a foreign government. So this is, as the reporting describes, it's related to the subject that was Mr. Trump's first impeachment trial. Specifically, I think the focus is on efforts by certain political factions in the Ukraine to have the ambassador, Marie Yovanovitch, removed for their own political reasons, and whether or not Mr. Giuliani was working on, in coordination or on behalf of that Ukrainian political faction to get that result within the United States government. I think the prosecutors are going to be looking at other crimes potentially as well, I would be looking for obstruction. I would be looking for bribery, perhaps other crimes as well. But it's serious.
The New York Times reported, Keir, back in February that prosecutors wanted to get their hands on Giuliani's electronics and communications last year, but officials in former President Trump's DOJ would not sign off on it because it was too close to the election. And now President Biden's Justice Department is obviously acting on it. In your experience, is that unusual for priorities to shift between administrations?
Right. Well, the first thing is that I've seen reports that in connection with this particular execution of the search warrant for Mr. Giuliani, the White House was not given a heads up. That is at least as to the timing, that is an important fact. We got a couple of things happening here at the same time. One, obviously you've had a change of administration, but you've also had a change of circumstances. The rule of thumb, it's not a hard and fast rule, it's a sort of a guideline. The Justice Department will try not to take any action that will interfere with an election result unless there are really compelling circumstances. It sounds to me like these allegations relating to Mr. Giuliani, execution of a search warrant in the run-up to the election, and because of the unique circumstances here with the election challenge, with all the lawsuits, that you could have you could potentially have an effect or an appearance of an effect that would cause caution. So all of these circumstances are unusual. It's unusual for a former president's personal attorney to be under investigation and have search warrants executed at their office and apartment. But there are other unusual circumstances, too, like the election. I'm not sure that we can say that the change of direction here is because of the change of administration as much as of change of circumstances. But again, the watchword has to be the rule of law. It would not be proper for political influence to have caused this change of direction, although I think it's hard to draw that conclusion based on the circumstances we have here.
So you just brought up something. I think after everyone heard about this raid taking place yesterday, you automatically think about the implications for former President Trump, now a private citizen, particularly if this investigation has to do with the goings-on in Ukraine. Now, the president was impeached and acquitted because of what happened in Ukraine. So I got to ask you: is there a possibility that that the former president is vulnerable, that he may be facing charges, that something else may turn up?
Yes, the key word there is private citizen, and also our Constitution specifically separates the impeachment process, which is political, from the ordinary criminal process, and in fact specifically says that following an impeachment, however it turns out, the person who is subject to the impeachment, President Trump, could be subject to criminal process here if there is exposure. As a private citizen, now he no longer is subject to the Justice Department's policies that preclude steps taken against a sitting president, like indictment.
Mayor Giuliani is scheduled to do a cable news interview tonight, Keir. Typically, lawyers don't want their clients to talk to the press about investigations like this. I'm not sure which outlet he's appearing on, but we know that oftentimes when he does make television appearances, that he seems to, if not dig the hole a little deeper, throw more confusion on whatever it is he's talking about. And I'm not just talking about appearing at the Four Seasons landscaping business. I'm talking about, his appearances on CNN and other cable news outlets where he says something and people go, wait a second, we didn't know that. Let's do some more digging into that. You think it's a smart move?
No, I don't. And the reason is that the prosecutors in Manhattan and the FBI can use any statement that he makes against him, and they can use it for leads, as you just described. If he says something that's contradictory with something later on, it can be used to impeach him. It's a minefield. But you know, he himself is a big personality. He's a public figure, and he's also a lawyer. So you know, I can imagine that his own counsel representing him here might have difficulty convincing him of the concerns, and may not be able to have him follow the advice that I think most defense lawyers would give here. I would, as I understand it, I think he may be appearing on potentially friendly media outlets, and that might make things even more concerning to the extent that he feels particularly comfortable and talkative.
Excellent point. Keir Dougall, thank you very much, my friend. Appreciate it.
Thank you.